be a mere citizen, but she sure handles this Jedi stuff pretty damn well. Ahsoka dropped its first 2 episodes, and the hypotheses were actually correct. This is a sequel to Star Wars Rebels, so if you didn't watch that, you might be pretty lost. But have no fear, we'll help catch you up on everything you need to know. Directed by Dave Filoni and Steph Green, episodes 1 and 2 of this brand new series set up the adventure, and it's exactly what we thought. Ahsoka's on the hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn and the Jedi Ezra Bridger, and where they might have gone is a pretty major development for Star Wars with some huge implications. We'll break all of that down, plus take a look at Baylon Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati and what their whole deal is. But before we get into all of that, I've got to warn you, we're about to spoil everything that went down here, so if you haven't seen Ahsoka yet or you just don't want to know, now is the time to make a dramatic exit while we get into this.
Keep your lid on, Chop.
Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, here are your main takeaways for episodes 1 and 2. Force-wielding citizen Ahsoka Tano is hunting the last Imperial Grand Admiral Thrawn, but he's hiding out in a distant galaxy, which is a huge deal by itself, but we'll get into that later. She enlists the help of her old friends from Star Wars Rebels, Mandalorian Sabine Wren, New Republic General Hera Syndulla, and this absolute sociopath of an astromech droid. Also hunting for Thrawn, Dark Jedi and mercenary Baylon Skoll and his apprentice Shin Hati, who are working for Morgan Elsbeth, who is also a Night Sister from Dathomir, BT dubs, and a masked former Inquisitor named Merrick. Also, it turns out that Elsbeth is salvaging hyperdrives from Galactic Civil War era capital ships to create a massive hyperspace ring, presumably capable of traveling to the distant galaxy Thrawn is hiding in. So that's the series. The race is on to find Thrawn, and when they find him, they hope they'll also find Ezra Bridger, who went missing the same time Thrawn did at the end of Star Wars Rebels. In fact, if you didn't watch Rebels, there's a strong chance you might be a little lost in all of this. The Ahsoka series assumes you did, and maybe you didn't, maybe you did, but it's been a while. I don't know, I'm not here to judge you. I am, however, here to help if Rebels is not top of mind for you. Here are the broad strokes. Ahsoka Tano still operates under the codename Fulcrum, something she did prior to the Galactic Civil War when she first met the Ghost Crew in Star Wars Rebels.
Fulcrum. Ahsoka. My name is Ahsoka Tano.
Ace pilot Hera Syndulla is now a general in the New Republic military. She still flies her ship, the Ghost, and its smaller shuttle, the Phantom. This lovable scamp still works in her service. Chopper, the most unhinged little sociopath this side of 000 and BT1 from the comics. No update on former ISB agent Callus or his buddy Zeb Orrelios, who we last saw appear in The Mandalorian Season 3 when they just casually cameoed perhaps the toughest Rebels character to do in live action. In the Rebels series finale, the Jedi Ezra Bridger, former apprentice to Kanan Jarrus, uses the Force to instruct a school of hyperspace swimming space whales called purgills to zap him and Grand Admiral Thrawn off to who knows where. Well, we kind of do now, but when this happened, it was a major development, dealing a massive blow to an already floundering galactic empire. And don't forget that sometime after this, the entire Galactic Civil War happens, like Rogue One plus the original trilogy, the whole big thing. We don't know what the Rebels characters were up to during this time, other than, not dying, since they're alive here. The final shot of Rebels shows Sabine and Ahsoka teaming up to go find Ezra if he is still out there somewhere. So this moment was the start of Sabine's apprenticeship to Ahsoka, one that we now know ultimately ended in failure. They didn't find Ezra, Sabine did not complete her training, and her friendship with Ahsoka was damaged. All of this happened off camera, and it's mostly implied in the Ahsoka series. This moment is the start of Sabine's second shot of apprenticeship with Ahsoka, Sabine even donning her Beskar Mandalorian armor and a familiar hairstyle to complete the look.
A Mandalorian and a Jedi? They'll never see it coming.
Except we did, Din Djarin. Except we did. By the look of things, this series is definitely shaping up to focus on Sabine serving as a Padawan learner to Ahsoka and navigating that relationship. Episode 2 ends with Ahsoka calling Sabine her Padawan. The Dark Jedi in the show, Baylon Skoll and Shin Hati, are also looped into this. Early in the first episode, everybody's favorite Mandalorian/street artist Sabine Wren reappears with lots of backstory that apparently happened off-screen in between this shot and the beginning of the live-action series. She grew out her hair and lives alone, well actually with a Loth cat in the old comms tower on Lothal, generally eschewing public appearances, personal relationships, and all responsibilities. She's in her quarter-life crisis, I guess. She talks to Hera, but otherwise Sabine seems to be pretty solitary and craggy. It's clear that losing Ezra wounded her, and he has been on her mind for some time now. Star Wars Rebels implied, but never confirmed, that Sabine was Force-sensitive, but it's confirmed here, and she even was Ahsoka's apprentice for a time, wielding and even customizing Ezra's left-behind lightsaber. Unfortunately, the training did not go well, leaving both Ahsoka and Sabine with bad taste in their mouths about it. Sabine feels that Ahsoka was A, way too hard on her, and B, abandoned her, which is something Ahsoka actually agrees with, and Ahsoka feels that Sabine wasn't ready to be trained in the ways of the Force. She wasn't interested nor committed enough, which also seems to have been the truth. By the end of the 2-episode premiere, Sabine shows Ahsoka she is ready to resume her training, especially since that means she can find Ezra. And Ahsoka accepts her. She actually calls her Padawan. Additionally, Sabine finally dons her colorful Mandalorian armor again, ready to become the one and only Mandalorian Jedi in the galaxy. That was obviously a joke. Nobody forgot about our perfect boy, Din Grogu. Pretty wild that Ahsoka can totally train Sabine, but not Grogu. Don't forget she outright refused to train Grogu in The Mandalorian Season 2, citing Anakin Skywalker's turn to Darth Vader as the reason, which still totally applies to Sabine too. Might explain why Ahsoka had been so tough on her. Part of Grogu's untrainability, in Ahsoka's perspective by the way, does stem from his bond with his papa, and who'd want to get in the middle of that? That wouldn't have been an issue with Sabine. At any rate, it does seem like Ahsoka and Sabine became estranged due to a failed apprenticeship. Ahsoka's protocol droid Hu Yang fills in some backstory here, calling Sabine one of the worst Force wielders he's ever witnessed, and one has to suspect a lot of the reason why is due to her own baggage, which she's hopefully ready to let go of. There is a precedent for this pattern when Sabine had a similar hang-up in Star Wars Rebels while Kanan Jarrus tried to train her to wield the Darksaber, and it was only when she was finally able to let go of her baggage that she was able to make a major breakthrough.
My family didn't stand with me. They chose the Empire.
Okay, so like we mentioned earlier, Ahsoka's hunt for Thrawn leads her and Morgan Elsbeth's whole squad to a star map, and later the realization that Thrawn is hiding out in a whole other galaxy, plus how to get there. Now, this is a huge deal by itself because it changes what we know about space travel in Star Wars. It sets up an open-ended chance to do some alternate Star Wars storytelling, and it might also be looped in to Emperor Sheev Palpatine's elaborate Final Order plan from The Rise of Skywalker. From what we know about space travel in Star Wars, everything is contained to one galaxy. This is where everything happens. It's assumed that they are aware of other galaxies, but travel between galaxies is supposed to be impossible. But of course, we now know it's not. In the Legends/Expanded Universe canon, the Yuuzhan Vong was the only alien race to achieve intergalactic travel in their weird living spaceships. Now, there's no indication that the Vong are gonna show up here, and it's probably pretty unlikely that they will, like much of the EU content out there. The important part here is the intergalactic travel, and it seems that by salvaging the hyperdrives of huge capital ships, Morgan Elsbeth is pretty close to achieving it now too. Since there's a whole other galaxy out there, this sets up almost endless possibilities of where the story could go. This is essentially an alternate universe, and writers can do all kinds of new stuff there. Like, what if Thrawn just says screw it and decides to dominate the distant galaxy he's already in? Who says he hasn't done that already? What if there's an alien race there who use living weapons and are invisible to the Force? The point is, a distant galaxy allows you to do just about anything you want. For example, if you were to say, I don't know, clone yourself and secretly build a massive fleet of Star Destroyers somewhere, a distant galaxy nobody can get to would be the perfect place for something like that. And that's actually what they might be doing here. The Resurrected Emperor's whole Final Order gambit in The Rise of Skywalker kind of hinged on having this massive fleet of super Star Destroyers, each armed with a planet-destroying Death Star-level super weapon. In the same way that Andor and Rogue One kind of fill in the gaps on how a moon-sized weaponized space station actually gets made, this reveal of the distant galaxy could actually be doing that with the Emperor's Final Order. Huyang, Ahsoka's sidekick droid, has been around for a minute. He's an ancient droid who served the Jedi Order in the Temple on Coruscant and was originally built more than 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. He's so old. That's also why his design is different from other droids. Can anyone say merchandise? Seriously, they already sell stuffed Loth cats at Disney's Galaxy's Edge, but they aren't that cute, in my opinion. Until now, Sabine's little buddy is easily going to be the big cute merchandising hit of this whole series. Just you watch, you'll be throwing your stuffed porgs in the fireplace, like Chewie would do. Anyway, to get back on point, Loth cats are creatures usually found on Lothal, though we've seen them pop up in other places, like when one appeared that one time in a cantina on Sorgan, just before Din Djarin got his ass kicked. So far, I have to say, really nice that we're not on Tatooine for once, and that no one has even brought up Tatooine yet. Lothal obviously is a key location from Star Wars Rebels, and it was cool to visit Corellia again, first time we've been there since Solo. Clancy Brown is an Easter egg unto himself. He is actually reprising his Rebels character, Ryder Azadi, a leader on Lothal, but Clancy Brown is actually a bunch of characters in Star Wars. He's Darth Maul's bro, Savage Opress, in the Clone Wars. He was that cool-looking Inquisitor in Tales of the Jedi who Ahsoka cured of a pesky oxygen addiction. But that's not all. He was also an unlucky Devaranian who tried to test Din Djarin in The Mandalorian Season 1 and wound up finding out exactly how strong those blast doors really are. Do you remember the purgill from Mandalorian Season 3? When Baylon Skoll and Morgan Elsbeth take a look at the star map, there are space runes of a school of purgill orbiting the planet Thrawn is supposedly hiding out on. Seems like they could be the key to intergalactic travel. Okay, maybe not an Easter egg exactly, but did anyone else get Jedi Fallen Order / Survivor vibes from that puzzle Ahsoka solves to unlock the ancient star map? Really felt like one of those levels I can't seem to get through without checking out the excellent guides here on IGN.com. That's real though. Also not an Easter egg since he didn't show up at all, but we are officially on Jacen Syndulla watch. Jacen, of course, is Hera Syndulla's son she had with Kanan Jarrus, because apparently they engaged in child-making activities sometime off-screen before Kanan sacrificed himself in Rebels Season 4. They casually revealed that Jacen existed just before the show ended, and he hasn't been seen in anything since. Where is Jacen Syndulla? Does he go to Luke Skywalker's school for gifted younglings? We need answers! But what did you think of the Ahsoka premiere? Is this the Rebels sequel that you've always wanted? What do you think they're setting up with this whole other distant galaxy thing? And by the way, who is Merrick under that mask? Hit us with your theories down in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'm Kim Horcher, and for more Star Wars, here's why Order 66 was actually the biggest L the Emperor ever took, so make sure to check that out. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.